Okay, we'll call to order the meeting, confirmation of appropriate meeting notice. And approval of agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, meeting is approved. Approval of minutes from April 21st, 2021. Those were sent out by Jennifer.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All approved for minutes. Public participation. Anyone that wishes to participate now or when it comes up on the agenda? Which way do you want it? Okay, I'm gonna state your name and address so we know who you are, Mr. Lucas.
My name's Chris Lucas. I live at 1012 Dickoff Drive in the city of Milton. I'm speaking on behalf of the leadership of the fire department tonight. We just simply would like to get some questions answered, and some of those things I believe will be answered tonight. This has been a very trying last few months for us, and there's a perception out there that there's a lot of division, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of mistrust, false statements. I think the department's been cast in a poor light. We've gone from the place that you wanted to be, the place that you wanted to go if you wanted to get a full-time job somewhere, to pretty much the laughing stock of the county. Because of what's going on here, we don't know we don't know where we're going to be 6 months from now, let alone a year from now. It's been very stressful, yet we're still here. We're still here. We're going to do what we need to do to provide the service. There are still people that are showing up every day. There are still people that are doing what they need to do, despite the fact that we've read in the paper that we've been called a failing organization, that we've been called not professional based on our pay. I'm going to say this again for the probably 100th time. We train to the same standard as somebody that's a career firefighter. We have the same certification that somebody else does. You have to stop using that term. The public's been led to believe that we can't handle our runs. This is an amazing organization because the few people that are left are doing one heck of a job, and I'm really, really proud of the job that they've done. I guess the best way to sum it up, and I'm not making light of divorce, but we feel like a child of someone whose parents are getting divorced, and we don't know whose side to be on, and we just want our parents to get back together. Is basically what it's come down to. We don't really know what the message is when it seems like both sides are willing to do whatever they have to do and spend more money or whatever it is to make their plan come together. You got a pretty darn good fire department right here in front of you, and it would be really cool if we could just all get together and spend that extra money, give this department some extra funding, give them a little love, and maybe we could make this thing come together. And I'm not pointing a finger at, as leadership of the department, we have a big responsibility in this too. We have failed. One thing that we talk about in our line of work is that if you make a mistake, you own it. Well, I'm owning it as a leader of the organization. We have probably not worked as hard as we could to probably save things. So for that, I apologize. I think that the department, the commission, the towns we serve, the citizens, they all deserve better than what we've given them as a team. And I think we all need to really remember service above self. We're putting a product out there. We're taking care of a lot of people. We're taking care of a lot of things. We've got a big responsibility on our shoulders. This has been very taxing. And like I said, we have a very good organization, and none of us are as strong as all of us. So let's work together. We're willing to do whatever it is that we need to do We want to work with you. We want to work with you as a commission. We want to work with the city and the town together. We want to work with all the towns. But this has really been a tough time for everybody. We're hanging on. We hope we get some answers tonight. We really hope that we can make an investment in the department that we have now. But if not, somebody pull the trigger and make the decision that we're going to separate, so we can know, we know as leaders what we need to do moving forward. We have a whole department of people that want to know. We have citizens stopping in on almost a daily basis asking us what the hell is going on, and we don't have those answers. So thank you for your time. I hope that we get the answers to our questions. I know it's not easy for you either. I know that everybody's trying to do the best that they can with the information that they've provided and what they feel is best for their citizens and their communities. But I hope we can all just take a deep breath and bring it back together and, at least have the conversation. If it works out in the end that separation is what's best, then so be it. But I hear a lot of discussion about what one side wants to do and what the other side wants to do. But I don't hear a lot of discussion on, could we do anything to save what we have now? So that's all we ask. Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? Okay. All right. As we go along at different times under new business, if you have something to add at that time, please do raise your hand and let us know if you wish to speak. Okay. There wasn't any old business, so we'll move on to new business. The first section, discussion and possible action regarding City of Janesville's notice to opt out of Intergovernmental Agreement, the IGA, and then there were attachments to your agenda sent out, the Intergovernmental Agreement and Memorandum of Understanding. That was a request for discussion sent out to me. So, someone want to begin with that discussion?
I'd like to note that the town had its monthly board meeting this past Monday evening, and we made a formal recognition of the intergovernmental agreement opt-out by Janesville. So the town recognizes its initiating the opt-out of that intergovernmental agreement effective December 31st of this year.
Now, according to the document, not recognizing it and just having it, not recognizing it by June 30th, just activates their dropping out and terminating the agreement. If you intervene before June 30th, then there is a notice that you disagree with it. So the city chose not to intervene and note that we disagree with it. So we essentially accepted their notice to opt out. So any other comments from anyone regarding the opt-out of the IGA and MOU?
Do we need a motion to do the same thing, acknowledge the receipt of the intergovernmental agreement opt-out by Janesville for the commission? Is that necessary? Seeing as the municipalities have already made receipt of that, I didn't know if it would be necessary for the commission to do same.
I don't know that it's necessary. If you'd like to document it, that's certainly fine with me. So if someone would like to make a motion, that's fine.
I'll make the motion that we accept receipt of the opt-out agreement from Janesville dated June 18th of 2021.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed.
I think it would be important to maybe understand what exactly that means to the department. The obvious one is the source of chief shared services with Janesville. But I think there may be some other tangibles that this impacts as well. I think one of them would be a question of coordinating collections. That the city of Janesville, we were working with them doing collections, billing service, well, yes, billing services for billing for services rather. So I would like to understand more what kind of, pardon,
What kind of billing do you mean?
generally it's EMS, yes.
No, it's separate. We just use the same billing company, but Milton and Janesville never merge like that. We get our own paperwork. Everything is completely separate.
Is there anything else similar to that that we were coordinating with Janesville? I know we had talked about the potential of buying equipment together, and I don't mean that, but anything else we actually discussed that might be influenced by this decision?
No,
Didn't we have some computer services, some server?
we use we use the same Ignitec, but we're under our own billing also, only for Milton.
Good point. But,
Right.
I just wanted to make sure we realized what else this may impact.
The auto aid agreement, would that be in addition to this memorandum, or was that supposed to be included? That was a
So
separate
that would stand on its own.
for
Those
now.
kind of
Yeah.
MABUS and mutual aid and auto aid are separate agreements. So specifically this intergovernmental agreement and what we actually worked with Janesville as part of this memorandum of understanding. I just wanted to identify those.
My understanding, the big part of this would be the discussion regarding the chief position that would be impacted beginning January 1, 2022. And so I've added that to the next section of the agenda to discuss not filling specifically that position, but to begin a discussion of what that entails if we were to, well, we for the year 2022, what that position entails for Milton Township and the other townships that would move forward for that, for the coming year, and what we would like to see in terms of that position, because we will lose the contract with Janesville. And so, any thoughts that you would like considered?
It would seem apparent to me that we need a chief, and for a minimum of all of 2022, and not knowing the long-term future, what's going on for sure, but I think that we do need to offer this position as being available. Request any people that are interested in that to come forward, and you might want to have a discussion on how to handle that, but I think we do need to source a chief. I think it's important to realize that it may need to be considered a interim or temporary that may come with more news and may evolve into a longer interim service than anticipated through 2022, or become more permanent, or become something other than an interim through 2022.
I'm sorry, I don't agree. I don't agree with your beyond an interim, because we're still, the city is still going to be doing a referendum to hear what our voters have to say. And I don't know about any of the other municipalities, but I think that, we have to be very clear that whatever we're doing at this point in time, because we're all unaware of the other end of the coin, we need to make sure that everybody knows that it's a temporary.
That's exactly what I said. So I think you were confused by what I was trying to state. I apologize if I was if I wasn't clear. But yes, offering this as an interim or temporary position that we don't know where it will lead. Yes.
I don't want to be putting a date beyond 2022. I don't believe that's fair to these people.
Exactly, yeah, and I said that at a minimum, we would expect that we need a chief services through 2022 at a minimum. But I don't think it would be fair to say today, or at least in the very near future, in considering somebody as chief, that this is likely a long-term, indefinite career, decades, not knowing differently today. We may discover a lot of relevant things in the next weeks or months or year. But a candidate that expresses interest today, I don't think it's fair to assume that this would be a career, decade after decade, indefinite assumption.
Right.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I guess I would have the question as to not only would we want these people interviewed, but do we want to go farther out?
Oh, yes, I mean, I thought that's what Brian said, to source it, you mean
Outside.
outsource it, I mean, it needs to be posted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the analogy that I'd make is the situation that school districts sometimes find themselves in looking for an interim superintendent for one reason or another. And you know, who knows whether there are people out there or not that might be, you know, number one, obviously want somebody that's qualified for the job. But, you know, number two, whether there would be someone who would kind of accept this under these conditions. But I think we look for the very best that we can get for that interim period of time.
You know, under ideal circumstances, the person selected for the position would be someone intimate or have an understanding of the current operations of our department. If that means trying to find someone who's currently in the department staff interested in working in that position, would be very beneficial given the circumstances of the fire department, knowing the ins and outs of both personnel, knowing and understanding the systems that are already in place for the short amount of time that this position will potentially be available or operating for, rather than bringing in someone from maybe an out of state or someone that doesn't have that understanding of the department. That could definitely create a little bit of I don't know what you want to call slowdown or maybe just overall change in the structure of the department. And we don't want to, the least amount of changes we can make to the operational procedures and morale of bringing people in that might change the systems would be beneficial, I would think.
Well, I think, you know, by getting people together here and discussing that, there are pros and cons to that. You know, that by discussing it, you can see that bringing in different ideas and talking about it, you know, as Chris pointed out, that wanting to stay together can also take different perspectives. You know, what's not working, what is working, and trying to pull that all together. And maybe there is a way to stay together, but looking at it differently. And sometimes it just takes a different way of looking at it, you know, who knows, but.
And it might be somewhat premature, but we do have some budgeted amount for chief expenses that we've been paying Janesville, that we apparently are obligated through all of this year yet. That was 55,000 a year.
Yeah.
52.
I don't mean to discuss that number today, but there's a budgeted amount to work with and consider in maybe an interview process or whatever that may be. But I do think that there's a value in a overlap or transitional opportunity, so that maybe 1, 2, 3 months towards the end of this year, that I don't want to call it cross-training, but we have somebody come in sooner than January 1st of 2022. But that will also trigger a conversation about some budgeted,
You guys,
Salary.
be careful.
there'll be some budgeted salary discussion about that overlap and paying two chiefs at one time, but potentially. And again, I don't want to go deep into that conversation today, but I do think bringing somebody in sooner than later, and the fact that we have a salary to work with and a budgeting cycle that to at least consider that, not that we can't change that number, but it's important to note that we have those resources in hand.
I'll ask the question, is this a subcommittee that should be created of the commission to create the posting, discuss the financials, then come back to us next month even, so that we can have some better idea, clearer picture?
I would think that for the most part, the responsibility section of what the fire chief is expected to do can be something that's fairly general, something that's already in our intergovernmental agreement with Janesville. We can pull that information out and plug that in. And then it's just a matter of discussing if there's any additional criteria that are expected of that. I would kind of say at the commission level, these decisions shouldn't be too difficult to decide what are the responsibilities of our fire chief, and then figure out a dollar amount to go with that, whether that be falling with the parameter, like Brian said, that we already have allocated for fire chief. In considering that it's likely going to be a full-time position for the responsibilities required of that person, would there be additional benefits required as well?
And I hear what you're saying, Jen. I guess then I would suggest that we come prepared for that creation in completion at our next month's meeting.
So John, are you saying that this chief would be full-time? Because I'm thinking that we're not going to be changing anything other than interim, the name, interim chief. I mean, we went through very, very closely the chief's responsibilities when we designed all this. And all of these guys know what those are. It's all been out there. I just see no point in changing anything other than deletion of Janesville and then adding the interim, the word interim.
I'm not disagreeing with that, and that's why I was referencing if what we're going to create for the responsibilities in the job description, we can pull that directly from the draft that was already created. But if there's anything additional into that, we have the ability to add additional requirements in that. But the question still remains, are we looking at a full-time position? Because to me, we're running potentially 3 battalion chiefs that we're down to 2. And with the 2 that we have part-time, that's creating a lot of additional responsibilities that really we should have a full-time chief managing the day-to-day operations of the department. Even if it's for interim, whether that be a year or year and a half, I think it's a critical.
This would be a discussion for you to have and bring back then next time, not to discuss now. We don't have that on the agenda.
To discuss the fire chief?
Yep. I mean, for actually designing the position, we need to bring in your recommendations and then discuss, because other people have not talked to their bodies, like the city council or the town board, because it would actually increase the amount of pay to have a full-time chief, and determine, are they willing to put that kind of money into that position, and do they want it? So go back to your town board, and we'll go back to the city council and bring that in the next time we meet.
Respectfully, Teresa, I completely disagree. This is something the commission needs to discuss so we can reflect that back to our municipalities. So we need to have the discussion to determine what is appropriate for the department's needs. And then we can say, these are what the department needs, and then go back and say, this is how much money we would need to allocate towards these expenses. Is this appropriate? Those municipalities then can approve the budget when it comes through. But I disagree. I think this is exactly the point in time to discuss fire chief responsibilities and what we expect for the fire chief's position.
But we already have that. We have our fire chief's job description.
Yes.
If right now we decide that we're going to go to full-time, that changes our budget very much, not just in payroll, with benefits. We are working with union now. It's all different. So we have to go back to our municipalities and see if we can come up with the money, each municipality, both of us. I mean, I know you guys probably have projects going on. Well, so do we. How much can we afford? How much can we, the city, afford to increase? I mean, I believe, I have to agree with Teresa. I think that we need to, each municipality comes up with that determination.
And I hear what both of you are saying, and I'm not in disagreement with all three of you, actually. However, a concern that I have is that I think that our department has changed. While we have a chief in place, the department is not the same that it was 2 years ago. It's not the same that it was a year ago. And so for us to arbitrarily be able to discuss these things without talking to our BCs or administration at the fire department, and then also for the town and the city to sit down to just come up with a number, I think that we're just kind of fishing in an uncharted water here that we don't know much about. Personally, I think that it's important for us to gather the information, do discuss it as a commission, and then take it to our municipalities. But I don't want to sit up here. I have never, throughout the years, I have always said, I am not going to tell them how to do their business, but I need to hear what they need, and then we'll sit down to discuss it. And I'm not telling you guys to create the position for us, nor am I asking you to fill the position for us. But I do think it's important for us to hear what they need in order to be able to continue to offer the service that they do on an amazing level.
We have to know how much money we have to do it first, though.
Well, for 2022, that there's an assumption that we've got the current salary. We would clone that salary at a minimum. The expectations would be for 2022 at a minimum. And if that number is in the neighborhood of 55,000, that's somewhere between what we used to historically consider a part-time chief and a full-time chief. That there were some discussions some 3-4 years ago that we thought at that time that number needed to be somewhere in the 70,000 plus.
Right.
Maybe much more, but 70,000 plus. So the 55,000, if that's the number, is kind of in between there. But just being potential of an interim chief until more is known. I think offering benefits, that discussion when it happens, I would caution on what kind of benefits we can provide on an interim basis.
Well, that's true, but some of the discussion may be to look at adding another battalion chief so that is covered, and just a short part-time chief. There are other variables to this discussion that I'm not prepared to do tonight. And Beth has a good point, to do some research on it prior to having this discussion.
I think that that's a good point too, but I don't want to start over.
No.
I mean, as far
between
as-
now and next time,
Right.
and be ready to go. But perhaps I didn't write it correctly on the agenda, but it was not to, it was, the idea of making decisions was to decide who is going to do anything before we actually make a decision.
I think though that Beth's point of a committee to look at it is, one thought that maybe brings something back that's a little closer to what might be acceptable to, both parties. If we come back armed with what we've got right now, at the next meeting, we're gonna have a very long meeting, and I don't know that we're gonna get to go.
No,
So, that preparation in advance, and that preparation in advance representing both the town and the city, I think, makes some sense.
well, how about you and Beth? then act as our committee and bring back that information.
I would ask that the committee consider talking to officers within the staff on input of what is
I think. that's
perceived to be
important as
needed.
well. Yeah.
I agree. This is Larry. I agree
One
that,
thing that I just want to remind everybody is we are in July. So we are gonna have to make sure that we get this in, because I truly believe that this year we need to make sure that our towns know ahead of time what they will be charged. So I want to make sure that we are on our budget no later than August. Can we do that, Dan?
I think traditionally we've started that process in in the late summer, but a lot of it comes down to when we get some of those final touches, as I call it, that CPI plus the 2% thing. And I know this year, I believe the state moved that up, that they're using a different date for CPI to give us a little more latitude, so we don't have to wait all the way till Halloween for some of those final touches. And I've had some brief conversations with Deputy Chief Lucas. We've talked about trying to put together a preliminary 2022 in the near future, at least the first crack at it.
So can we just go ahead and put out this job description?
Sorry, just quick.
No.
He's on the Zoom meeting and he wanted to speak, so.
Okay, oh, he's back there going. Yes, you may speak.
okay, thank you. This is Larry. I agree with Brian 100%. And I so much agree with Brian that I recommend that the fire department leadership appoint one of their individuals, one of the sub-chiefs or chiefs or whoever they wish to serve on that committee. So there'd be a committee of 3. And that way there's input, direct input from the department as to what is needed. Not talking so much about salary and benefits, but talking about what is needed for this interim position. So thank you.
I don't have a concern whatsoever that Bill and I and whomever is appointed from the department is able to get information back to us for the next commission meeting. It does offer a question. I'm glad to hear, Dan, that you've been working with Chief Lucas, because I was kind of wondering what that whole budgeting process was going to look like, because that too is obviously different.
I mean, we haven't started it. We've just loosely talked about it. But
Understood. But I was just wondering what that was going to look like this year.
I have full confidence in Chris. He's been around for a while. He knows how to do a budget.
That's a good way to introduce him. He's over the hill. You want to do it, Chris, or you guys want to talk about it? What do you want? Yeah, all right. So someone want to make that motion for Chris,
I got-
Bill, and Beth?
I do want to make a motion that the commission hereby requests input from staff on discussing an interim chief and what those needs may or may not be moving forward.
Are you including the people also appointed in that subcommittee? Just make it one motion so that we're making the people on the subcommittee.
And that's part of a subcommittee. I believe Teresa has appointed 2 members from the commission already. I don't want to complicate what I'm trying to make my motion to be, but I'm done with that.
Well,
But
their responsibility will include in their own entities, the fire department, the town board, and the city council.
I think what's very relevant here is that the commission is asking to talk directly with staff, giving current directives from leadership within the department. It's important to note in the minutes that the fire commission is asking to communicate directly with staff.
But we also need to remember that we currently have a chief until the end of the year, so he also needs to be in this discussion in some place.
And this committee certainly should consider that. But the point I'm trying to make is that there has been some directives by the chief to not talk to outside sources from the fire staff. And so I'm trying to make a
Let's make a
point here.
Okay, let's just limit that to certain.
Okay,
I
move to
did.
create a subcommittee comprised of Chris Lucas, Bill Will, to research the position, the chief position, by communicating with staff as part of this process, as well as reviewing with their own entities preferences and needs for this position, and bringing those back in the August meeting.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Can we have discussion, please? I just want to bring up one point / question. What do we seek to achieve by this? Because, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, I truly want to understand, with the information that gets brought back, how is it going to then be vetted by the commission? Are we going to then go into closed session to discuss employee benefits and potential pay? And what is the next step once that information is gathered with that committee?
I think we have to go into closed session and we need to move quickly. And then we need to get it out so that we can get our applicants in. It's really unfortunate the way that our delays have happened so many times for this department. Let's as a commission, let's just get through this quickly for these people. So let's get this done in our August meeting. In September, look at our budget.
I have a question. I mean, would you at that point discuss, other than a general parameter regarding pay, or would you just give a parameter and wait and discuss pay once you actually discuss after the interviews who that is? I mean, if you just post the position, giving a range, why would you need a closed session? I mean, that will be a public issue, right? Because
You're
it's
right.
posted. I mean, I hate to be dark and cozy in a closed session. To me, this is a
Unless you wanted
public
to make some
issue.
interview in closed session,
Nope.
but I don't know if that's necessary or not, but.
Once we got to that stage, yes, but this next meeting, I'm not sure that I would discuss
I agree.
what we're expecting of the position in closed session.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess I'm still a little bit confused here. I'm going to go back to, we already have a job description. Can we not just utilize that job description and start interviewing or put it out there?
Well,
Once
that would be up to this group to discuss it with the people that they have, to pull it up, review it, and perhaps they'll bring it back and
Right.
say, yes.
I think some of the very questions that are being asked in terms of full-time, some sort of a hybrid that's between the half-time or the roughly half-time and the kinds of things that Brian was mentioning, those are the kinds of things that we come back with. And we'd be coming back with something that's been vetted by the town and by the city.
Yeah.
That is the framework for something that we've discussed with the department, so that we have some idea that framework would work for this period of time. So that's what I envision anyway.
And I would agree, Bill. I think the question that in my mind right now is the order of things. So we meet and then we take it to our municipalities and then to the commission, or does it go vice versa?
I almost think it's a, meet with the respective governmental bodies, do the work of the committee, and then come back to the governmental bodies, or at least in terms of a discussion kind of a thing. But what we need to do is we need to get a recommendation for the fire commission. I would agree with Linda on this at the August meeting. That needs to be there so that then we can move forward with the budgetary fallout that comes from whatever we've decided.
Okay, sounds good.
There's a motion on the floor by Brian to move to appoint Bill Wilson, Beth Drew, and BC Lucas to a subcommittee to research the position of fire chief by communicating with staff as part of the procedure, reviewing intent, and for the need to each township and city for the needs for this position, and bring back to the August meeting.
Very good.
That's a great job. I don't know how you did it, but I think
Okay, any other comments, questions?
I don't know if we might have some questions from our townships that we have in the audience. I don't know if we might have.
Any questions before we vote? Comments?
Townships?
Good. Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll wait for feedback at our next meeting. Thank you for agreeing to be on the committee. Fire chief's report. We do not have a fire chief tonight.
This is that one.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Okay.
Basically just a rundown of the calls and the training for the months of May and June. We had 2 very busy months. In the month of May, we responded to 123 calls for service.
Oh.
Our training was live burn training, ropes and knots, hose advancement, boat operations, and EMS refresher. In the month of June, we responded to a total of 113 calls. Our training was forcible entry, rural water supply, EMS policies and procedures, advanced skills, and EMT refresher. And on June 5th, we responded to 14 calls for service in 1 day, including a residential fire. That's it.
Typically, we're able to ask questions about the budget during the chief's report, but just in general, Dan, your gut feeling on where we stand at this point of the year?
Yeah, sorry, I was out this week and realized I didn't send anything last week. Everything seems to be holding up. We're obviously at the halfway point, so it's fairly easy to tell if things are, shaking one way or another, and everything at this point seems to be holding steady, so no concerns about overages or dipping into the reserve fund balance.
I would also like to ask a question, Dan. Do you know, or maybe Jenny, you would know, are we getting payments for our services with this company that we're working with?
For EMS?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I'm pretty
That's
consistently.
That's right on track.
It's a little down. We've got 5 months worth of transactions, and it's 86,000. But I noticed that when there's a down month, it will typically pick up in the next month. And I know there's a fairly significant delay between collections and when a call happened. I don't know the exact timing because I only see the aggregate numbers when the collections come in, but I don't know if you have a better pulse on like the timing of that stuff. So like our May calls, when we typically see the revenue coming in from.
It's all different because it depends on if it's Medicare or private insurance or private pay.
But the last couple of years, we've tracked fairly close to budget, how it shakes out. If I look at, we're probably tracking about 20,000, 30,000 under right now, but in past years, I know that's been the case, and then it picks up later on in the second half. So I don't fret it too much because of, since we went to Andres, our numbers have been pretty good.
General items, the one thing that I wondered about the budget 2022, usually August, we begin to start working on that. And the three of you want to start taking a little stab at that in your free time?
Dan talked about that.
Oh, the four of you, sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that thing. All right. And then at our next meeting, maybe at least talk a little bit about, I don't know if you'll be ready for an overview of what, even without some of these numbers like chief or whatever, if you just put in the 52,000 and then we'll go from there. Even if that has to be modified, but at least start from there so we can start talking about what we have and where we need to go from there.
And by the way, on that, the town historically, on the annual budgeting process, we do a September budget workshop and an October budget workshop. September, we plug in all the numbers we know, and then we take wild guesses at the balance of it. And then in our August or October budget workshop, we try to make a completed absolute budget to propose to the electors. So our process begins with a September workshop in the township.
Any other general items that anyone wishes to discuss? Okay, the one thing that we do need to talk about is next scheduled meeting. I didn't know if you want to leave it at the normally scheduled date, which would be Wednesday, August 18th, or if you feel that we need to meet sooner than that.
I guess the 11th, which would be the meeting the Wednesday prior, so it'd be 2 weeks into August, might be beneficial to get that extra week in there so that if we're going to try to make a posting, we can make the posting by September 1st and then potentially have our process start beginning of September through until we can select a candidate. So that there's potentially a month or a month and a half of transition time before the end of the year of that potential new person starting. So I would say the 11th would be good if we can finalize information from the committee and confirm that we have the requirements of the position and then make the posting.
I have a conflict of another committee. In fact, I missed the meeting.
Right.
I've got a conflict with a county committee that I serve on that falls on this night, and I felt this was a really important meeting, so I'm here instead of doing the county meeting, but I'd hate to meet that miss twice in a row.
Right.
I could on that date, on that earlier date, if we were to move it later,
Okay, we could go the 7th on the 11th, or
7 PM on the 11th, that's relatively short meeting.
or the 12th, or move it back to the 18th, the normal date.
Yeah, 7 PM would work good. I appreciate that. And I do agree that a little bit earlier like that allows us a little bit of time to work with this chief's position and maybe the budgeting process.
Yeah, the 11th at 7 PM would be fine. I'll make that work for sure.
What, yeah, I can make it work. I too have a conflicting meeting, but this is more important. I'm also wondering about city council meetings. Are you going to have a chance to meet prior to that? Because that's gonna put us in short order then.
Yes. Yes, we have a meeting on the 3rd.
Okay. We're gonna have to meet quickly here then.
Well,
No,
the
and
committee is gonna
it's
have to
already
meet
mid-July.
quickly.
So we're meeting a week early this month as well.
Otherwise, we can meet on the 18th.
2 weeks and a wedding in there.
That's right.
We could meet on the 18th, meet on our normal date, the 18th, and we have a meeting then on the 17th.
That's better, that's.
It would certainly be better for me, but this is not about me. So if we can
I mean,
knock
we
this
could
out
wait.
in 2 weeks' time, then let's do it.
If we could just, if you want to wait till the 18th and meet at 6 o'clock, that's fine.
And there may be also some value of meeting on the 11th. And then if the council needs to make some financial decision on the 17th, that leaves you that opportunity as well.
I'm hearing that Beth's got some conflicts in there. I have some in there as well. Maybe it's safer to go with the 18th and then back off to the 11th if we find that we can get the job done.
And I think that's a valuable suggestion as well. I would prefer to stick with the 18th, not because I don't foresee us getting this done, but I also don't want this done in a haphazard fashion.
Okay. Fire Commission meeting Wednesday, August 18th, 6 PM. Now, I am also scheduling these at City Hall so that they can be on Zoom and they can be taped. So,
Okay.
so far on that agenda, I do have, well, it would be an update on the subcommittee. The budget 2022. Want to follow up with some things that Chris brought up to see where we're at with some of those things, if we can. And then anything else that anybody sends to us. Anything else that you know of now?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.